I was cleaning my room. Hold on. I forgot I started the recording. Uh, where's my headphones? Good to go. All right, let's see. Wait, what are we supposed to be recording today? Opening range gaps. Okay. Well, all right, folks. Welcome back to another, of course, concept or episode or video or whatever you want to call it, teaching. We're going over opening range gaps. That's why my chart looks so gapish and weird and very unusual, to say the least. And my chart is very disconnected. But anyway, opening range gaps. Let's keep this real short and sweet, all right? The definition of an opening range gap is using the regular trading hour setting right here when it comes to futures, okay? See that? It says RTH. Normally, we're on electronic trading hours, which looks like this. Normal connected price action with not that many gaps, right? Unless there's a new week opening gap. Over regular trading hours, it's regular trading hours, okay? Which is, listen to me, 9:30 a.m. to 4:15 p.m., okay? Now, what actually forms a opening range gap is when you have Monday's settlement price or the previous day's settlement price, which is at 4:15 p.m., to the next day's opening price, which is at 9:30. Okay, that's the regular trading hours. Okay, understand? So regular trading hours, that time is from 9:30 to 4:15. All right. So, for example, let's say it's Tuesday for you, which is today. For me, it is Tuesday right now at what 12:59 going on to. So today, I'll be looking at today's opening price to the previous day's settlement price on Monday for 4:15 on regular trading hours, which is basically the last candle of the previous day on Monday, which is right here, to today's candle or today's opening price, which is 9:30. Simple as that. So it's at the closing price. Let's find that on Monday. Hold on. Right there. Let me just go ahead and drag that out real quick. To right there. That's the opening price. There's your opening range gap. Probably like, why is it called opening range? Because you're opening up a totally new day. We're going from Monday's previous settlement price to Tuesday's 9:30 opening price. So electronically, look over here. This is what happened. This is what that gap was made of. It was made of this price action here. This entire run up, that's what that gap was made of. That's why we see this gigantic 400-point gap, okay? Now, what exactly is this gap? What does it do? How can it help us? What is it? How can we use it? In short, it's basically another reference point, but it gives you a lot of guidance. A lot of guidance, really. It really does. So there's a lot of scenarios when it comes to this, in which they're kind of simple scenarios. It's not like it's something hard. When you have a massive gap like this, and when I say massive, I mean like over 200 points. Like when you have a over 200-point opening range gap, that's pretty large. I gotta be honest, that's pretty large. But this one is like 450, I think. Yeah, this gap is 453 points. That's massive. So whenever you have something huge like this, let me go ahead and set the foundation. Outside of what I just said, right, there is a normal, typical 70% chance that the equilibrium of the opening range gap is going to get hit. Simple as that, right? 70% chance that it's going to get visited. Now, of course, it's a 70% chance. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, on some days it can go to 50, on some days it can go to 20, on some days it can go to 30, because ICT never said that. If ICT did not say it, I'm not going to teach it because that's where I learned from, right? Now, that 70% chance, it's a 70% chance. But of course, price will sometimes ignore that 70%, just typically not even using any rules or factors or parameters or certain evidence that we see in price. It might ignore that 70% and say 30% of the time, you know what? Let's do this today. Okay. So in today is one of those days, actually. And just disregarding the 70% chance, that's kind of out the window, honestly, when you have such a large gap. Because look at this. It's just consistent run up. Just run up, retrace, run up, consolidate, run up, retrace, run up, retrace, run up, consolidate. It just keeps going up. Okay, you get the point. It just keep going up. So if you see such willingness to go higher, which leads to such a massive gap, it's pretty unlikely that it's not even going to hit the equilibrium at all. Now, reminder, we do have the upper quadrant and lower quadrant of this. So you could see those get respected also. Now, do they have any purpose? Like just bind it to the fact that they are quadrants of an opening range gap? No. But let me just show you what I'm talking about on why it will not reach equilibrium. Just alone, that is 225 points. That's a lot. That's over the parameter of what we would say is bigger or a huge opening range gap. If over 200 points is huge, then 450 points is gigantic. You get what I'm saying? So it wouldn't make any sense for price to come all the way back down just to hit equilibrium, just to go back higher. Okay, because if it wanted to go higher, it would go higher. It'll probably manipulate in the slightest, in which that slight manipulation was price coming down to hit that upper quadrant. Okay, in which the quadrants are simply just price where you can see price as a price, but points at which you can see price, respect, and possibly reverse that to continue the narrative. Okay, in which today's narrative is obviously, according to the electronic trading hours, is to go higher. So if we want to go higher, and we have a massive gap like this, it's likely that that 70% chance is going to be thrown out the window if we have evidence that price wants to go higher and it's clearly showing it. You're likely not going to see that gigantic what was that 200? No, let me see. Yeah, you're likely not going to see that 230%, not 30%, but 230-point manipulation down just to go back higher. Just doesn't make any sense. Like I said before, the algorithm is a lazy bum if it doesn't have to manipulate, or if it has to manipulate very, very short term, like, or just has to manipulate a small amount, it's going to do that so it can deliver its narrative. It's not going to sit here and go all the way back down, because if it wanted to do that, it doesn't want to go higher. Okay. It simply just wants to sell off for the day and fill this opening range gap. Okay. Now, these opening range gaps aren't like regular gaps. And what I mean by that is because this is just purely natural. These can form almost every single day. So it's not like they have any influence on price to say, oh my God, there's a gigantic gap. You must fill this immediately. No, this is just a reference point. This isn't like a liquidity void or some sort of imbalance. This is just something that naturally forms. Okay. And I'm teaching you the characteristics, the guidance, and the factors that it offers you so you can actually use this to anticipate price action or anticipate price delivery. Super, super simple, right? In which, if you look, this massive gap, equilibrium did not get touched. It's too massive. We have a whole bunch of evidence that price wants to go higher just alone due to the massive expansion overnight from what's that? Yeah, that's all Asia's price action. That's crazy. So just from looking at that, and we clearly see that price has a displacement in the willingness to go higher, it's not gonna come all the way back down. Because if it wants to go higher, it's gonna go higher. It's a lazy bum. It's only gonna respect the upper quadrant just to say, hey, I don't even want to touch equilibrium. Okay. And if you understand that price doesn't want to touch equilibrium, you should automatically take that as a huge confluence that price wants to just keep going and not retrace. Okay. It did the most minimal retracement ever, hitting upper quadrant, respecting it, and continuing higher. Simple? Okay, super, super duper simple. All right. Now, normally, okay, I have to give you some time or some form of time so you can anticipate when it'll actually start manipulating and preparing and doing stuff within that opening range gap, in which that time is 9:30 to 10 o'clock, the first opening range. You want to see what the opening range looks like? Hold on, let me show you. Let me see. Up here we go. Opening ranges right here. All right, so New York morning or New York AM, 9:30 to 10 a.m. Okay. The concept of opening ranges are time-based algorithmic ranges created to prepare price for its delivery. Simple as that. So that preparation for its delivery, of course, it's not just only referring to the opening range gap, of course not. But if you are using the opening range gap, you would definitely, definitely be watching the 9:30 to 10 o'clock opening range if you are using the opening range gaps, because that's when price will normally start to prepare, manipulate, and basically just start to act upon this opening range gap here. Okay, now that's just one example. That's just one. Okay, now from here, is this another over 200 point? That's insane. That's like seriously insane. Holy, that's crazy. And then also just looking at the first portion of when price first opens, it starts delivering. Like, let me see, let me get the closing price. Closing price is right there. Opening price is here. How much is that? Yep, 300 points. Still massive. Okay. So whenever you have, okay, when price opens up at 9:30, there's two things it can do right off the bat. Because it's just that massive explosion of volatility and energy during the first 5 minutes of the 9:30 open. So in those first 5 minutes or 10 minutes, normally what price would do is, if you want to see that clean, high probability price action, of course, and you just want to see it continue from the opening range gap, it can either keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, or it can retrace. Now, That first initial movement means a lot, in which ICT, I don't think ICT really taught this, but that first initial movement means a lot, like a lot, a lot, a lot, especially if the movement ends or starts before certain times. Super, super duper important. Watch this, okay? We're gonna drop to the let's go to the 1 minute. Why not? Okay, here we go. Now, as we can see right off the bat, we opened up and started rallying higher. Why is that? What was the point of that? Hey, I don't know, but I just know on the on the first 15 minutes of the day we started rallying higher. We don't know what the purpose of this was. We don't know why I did this because we're just looking at regular trading hours. We're not going back to electronic trading hours and basing it off of that because that'll kind of be cheating, right? So let's just say that we're only using regular trading hours just to make this a little harder on ourselves, and we're only using the opening range to really see what price wants to do. So as we can see, during the first 15 minutes of the opening range, we rally higher. But what do we do when we rally higher? We purge liquidity. See that? See all the liquidity up there? We purge liquidity, and then we make it to the end of this opening range gap right here. See that? Okay. So you see that right there? So the equilibrium is what will primarily determine the how can I explain this? Like, okay, in the day or the day that a opening range gap forms, the equilibrium of that day's opening range gap is what's primarily going to determine the direction of the day, okay, or what price is going to do throughout the day. Now, the high, the low, and the quadrants of the opening range gap is what will assist you when looking at the equilibrium and you can use for previous opening range gaps, okay? Now, I would personally say if you just to have not too many drawings on your screen. And I think this is the official rule that he made is that you should only use you can use multiple opening range gaps as references, of course, because there's no such thing as an opening range gap getting filled because it's just, electronic price action getting printed over into real time, not real time, but getting printed over into regular trading hours. So you can use previous opening range gaps within the same week, of course, and use their quadrants, their highs, and their lows as references, in which I just used the previous day's opening range high as a reference. Okay, see that? As you can see, taps it once, boing, creates a short term swing, comes back up, boing. As you can see, the macro kicks in right there at 950. Right on 950, comes up, creates an immediate rebalance, hits this breaker, hits this order block, respects it, starts delivering lower, and boom, there's your trade of the day. But there's your trade of the day right there. See that? Super duper 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 simple. Now, if you want to hold this to equilibrium, of course you can because there's a 70% chance that price is going to hit the equilibrium. Okay. When? When will it hit it? Sometimes it can be within the opening range. Okay. But that would normally happen if it hits the equilibrium within the opening range. It's likely that that opening range gap is under 200 points. Under 200. But when you have such a massive gap, price is going to use the opening range gap to prepare itself to go to equilibrium, or it'll use that opening range gap to just prepare price and not even reach the equilibrium at all to then keep going in that gap's direction from where it formed. Like for example, you see how we gapped up, it'll use that first 30 minutes. If it wants to keep going higher, it'll use that first 30 minutes to prepare to continue in the gap's direction to keep going higher. Simple as that, right? But since this is a bullish opening range gap, right? And we just opened straight up and just started ripping higher, we manipulated. This would be manipulation, okay? Because we're still in that first 10 minutes. I mean, not first 10 minutes, but that first 30 minutes, which is the opening range. So right off the bat, we go up, manipulate, reference this, purge liquidity again, and then of course we purge liquidity a second time. So we purge liquidity here once, we purge liquidity there at that short-term swing. And then we respect that old opening range gap there. So just from looking here, in which we're still in the opening range. So what we're doing here, because the opening range is price action, still you can still take a trade within the opening range, but you just have to pay attention to what's going on. And I just hit my mic. You might have heard that, but I just tapped it with my hand by accident. Well, what was I saying before I tapped my mic? You can still take a trade within the opening range. You just have to pay attention to the time, the macros, and what's actually going on. Okay. So this first rally means a lot because we jumped up, manipulated, respected this, right? Then we had a break in market structure. Then we had the respect of this breaker. this order block, and then we had the immediate rebalance that formed right at 950 at the start of the macro. So since we're seeing all these confluences, what's happening? Well, what does price want to do right now? What he wants to do, right, is it's using the opening range to prepare to fulfill the 70% chance of visiting that equilibrium. Okay, that's all this was. Okay, you're probably like, how is that? Because remember, when we first opened up for the first 15 minutes of the opening range, we jumped up and manipulated. Simple as that, right? Now, if we kept going up, like for the first 30 minutes, if we just kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going, then it would have just been an aggressive day. But since we rallied up for the first 15 minutes and then reversed the next 15 minutes, it's likely that price is just preparing to fulfill that 70% rule of hitting the equilibrium, in which when we reach outside of that opening range, which is right here, we start to slowly, slowly go down until we reach, guess what? The equilibrium, and I think once we hit the equilibrium, we actually stopped going lower. See, look at that. How beautiful is that? We hit the opening range gap and basically stopped going lower until, after the trashy PM session. But you see what I'm talking about here? It can get a little confusing because I was still confused with this too. Like for a minute, I think I said this before, but it took me like 8 months, like close to a year, to fully get the opening range gap down pat because it was so confusing and weird to me. But just think of it as using your brain and understanding what price is doing, okay? Because within that opening range, it could simply just be expanding, just to expand, in which that'll likely only happen whenever you have like a small opening range gap, like of 100 points, or it's like pretty small to where it doesn't have to manipulate so much. Because if it's small, it's not gonna sit here and be like, man, I don't gotta do all that. Let's just keep going. That's basically how price is. But since this is so large and with so much movement overnight, price is going to be slowed down, and basically its narrative was already delivered overnight, so it's going to be like, okay, it's 9:30, let's just manipulate up. Okay, and then we're going to go all the way back down, break market structure, meet rebalance. Okay, all right, it's the end of the opening range. We prepared. Okay, good. All right, let's go down now. And then we hit equilibrium, fulfill the 70% rule, and then we never touch it again, all the way until PM session. Simple, right? Now we're going to do one more example. I hope I'm not making this confusing for you, in which honestly, dude, like this was a crazy gap. I don't even know what to think of this. Yeah, that's just insane. Um, Whenever you see something like this, like I said, anything over 200 points is massive. But whenever it starts getting to like 300, 400, 500, it's likely that it's just going to keep going. It's likely just gonna keep going. I mean, you could see like a miniature retracement up, like that. You see that right there, that little mini retracement. It's very, very situational, to say the least. It's very, very situational. That's why when you're looking, because it's kind of hard for me to explain this if I'm just using only the regular trading hours chart. But of course, what you want to do is use the electronic trading hours chart to find confluences and concepts and signatures and references that are being touched and fulfilled by price to understand what could possibly happen within this opening range gap while still using the opening range gap's characteristics. Okay? So with this, honestly, it's too large to even fulfill that 70% rule. It's just way too big. Pause. And if it's way too big, it's just gonna be like, okay, you know what? I'm not doing all that. I'm not gonna sit here and retrace close to 300 points just so it can go back down. If we see such willingness to go down by such a massive gap, don't you think it's gonna keep going down? Why wouldn't it, right? Anyway, if you want a bit more clarification on this, just use the compendium. It's right here for a reason. Well, not opening ranges, but let me go to it. Hold on. Hold on. Opening range gap right there. And there it is. Opening range gap right here. Anyway, this is the end of opening range gap. It's almost exactly 20 minutes. I might cut some things out, which might cut it down to 20 minutes. Anyway, a nice short form teaching from me, per usual. This is the end of opening range gap. I hope I taught you this well. This should help you when it comes to navigating intraday price action. All right. This is a little bit confusing to grasp because it's a very situational, probable, and will basically have you open your eyes a little bit more just to really pay attention to what price is doing on the intraday side. But anyway, this is the end of opening range gap. This teaching is over with, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Good luck and good trading.